You've come to the right place if you're looking to create, launch, and scale a high-value online training program. I'm your guide, Chris Badgett. I'm the co-founder of LifterLMS, the most powerful learning management system for WordPress. Stay to the end. I've got something special for you. Enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of LMS Cast. Today we have Roger Williams, who I just met at a conference in Arizona. Roger is the community manager and partner manager at Kinsta Hosting, one of the top hosts we recommend at LifterLMS. He also has done a lot of things in the tech space. He's got a fun, interesting lifestyle. We're going to get into that. But first, welcome to the show, Roger.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here.
Well, tell us about Kinsta. One of the things I love about Kinsta is I see people use it and I never see anybody complain about it. So something is going on there. You guys are doing something right. People are happy. But what is the Kinsta difference? What do you love about it? What makes it different in the space?
Yeah, man, thanks for the great question and teeing me up here. But so Kinsta, I've got to say it's one of the most unique working experiences I've ever had. I found the company when I was working at another hosting company in tech support. And what happened is that every time I would Google, some sort of database issue, right, would be the most common problem. I'm trying to help a customer. They got this weird error. So I go to Google it. And time again, this blog kept coming up with the perfect answer, right? It wasn't just like, oh yeah, here's the problem. It was like, here's the problem. Here's why it's happening. Here's the steps to resolve it. And that blog was Kinsta.com. And it was again and again and again for all these different problems. And so I was like, man, this is a really interesting company, right? They're willing to put all of this knowledge out into the universe for anybody to use it. They don't have to be a Kinsta customer. And it was just really helpful stuff. And so I applied to go work there, and they actually didn't hire me for tech support. I wasn't good enough. There was a specific question about file permissions that I just totally messed up. And so, but they were looking for migrations engineers. And so I got hired doing migrations. And, I quickly realized this is a very different company for a few reasons. The big one for me was feedback. I've worked at a lot of companies and I've had ideas for small improvements and some bigger improvements, but definitely smaller ones that specific to the task that I'm doing. And in migrations, right, you're interfacing with different hosts and all these, there's just a lot of stuff that changes all the time. And I was able to give feedback to my manager, and the stuff got implemented. And that just, maybe I haven't worked at really good companies that much, but that was really unique for me to experience, where I could give feedback, whether it was to my boss or straight to the engineering team, right, about the product, about the dashboard and stuff. And they would actually, if it was a good idea, they would actually implement it. And so, just all these things kept happening like that just made me really realize, we're walking the talk, right? A lot of companies say that they're really interested in taking care of their customers and their employees. But at Kinsta, I really do see that difference. And you pointed out, you said some nice things there about you've never heard anybody complaining about Kinsta. And I think that there's a few reasons for that. The first one is we built our dashboard from the ground up around people managing WordPress websites. And so, our engineers have taken from their own experience of doing this, and then also feedback from different developers and people that are using the service, and they've built this dashboard that we're able to iterate on, right? And so since we're not using somebody else's dashboard, if there's a change that needs to be made, we can just make that change. And I see this happen again and again. I mean, since I've been here for just over 5 years, we've done a complete revamp of the dashboard in that time, not only from a look and feel, but also from the code base behind running it. And they did that to help anticipate the things that we would be doing in the future. And so they're able to iterate really quickly on things. So there's the service is really good. But then on top of that, the support is really amazing. We have a really good team of leaders that understand how support works. Like they've been in the trenches, they've been on the chats and dealing with customers. So they know what a support engineer goes through. And they've created a really good system where, the engineers get amazing training, and then they're really encouraged to work with the customer and get to know the customer and help them and understand their problems and realize that even if it's an out of scope support issue, right? Like, for instance, like code, like we're not developers, we're not going to go in and touch your code. We want to get as close as possible to some sort of resolution for you so that when you get off the chat, you're able to go, okay, hey, either this plugin or this specific line of code is causing some sort of an issue, and I can either as a developer work on it, or I can get a developer to work on that. And I think that is a really big difference from how a lot of other companies run support where, hey, it's not our problem, go figure it out. We really don't want to say it's not our problem, even when it isn't our problem. And I think that makes a really big difference for customers. So long-winded answer there, and I can keep going on for days, but it really is definitely a unique place.
Yeah. But you can just tell the brand, the feel like in the market, and that comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
And I often hear also a lot about Kinsta's content, like you were saying, lots of helpful content is what you found.
Yeah.
And I know, I remember listening to an interview, I think with Brian Jackson a long time ago, who did a lot of great content work there. And, and he's a big leader in good content, SEO and all of that.
Yeah.
It's,
and Brian was with us for a long time. He's still a big supporter with us. He needed to step back from the marketing role, but he really pioneered for our teams, this approach of creating really useful content that the marketplace is looking for. And so really trying to solve a need there. But, it goes all the way back to the founders when they were in their apartment, getting it started. And just, realizing like, hey, we're going to build a really amazing product. And part of that was, starting to use Linux containers for every site to really help make them more bomb-proof and scalable as well, right? We can easily move those containers around if we need to. If you need to go to a dedicated machine, it takes very little time for us to provision and get you moved around. And so I think there's some of these fundamental aspects of our technology and the decisions made early on that have really paved the way for the great product and service that we're offering today.
Well, I know you're a big open source fan. So if somebody out there is watching or listening and, they want to make a course, they haven't really decided where they're going to put it.
Yeah.
There's hosted solutions like Kajabi or Teachable or Thinkific, but then there's options to have the website yourself and use WordPress and tools like LifterLMS and the other ones. Why are you such a big open source advocate, and how do you feel about it?
Yeah, great question again, and a big question. I think that open source software is one of these inventions, revolutions, what have you, that not enough of society really understands how fundamentally different and important this is. With open source software, you can see all of it, and everybody can see all of it. And so there's a huge network effect with that. When you have closed source software, such as like Microsoft or Apple, nobody can see that code. And so they can't see when there's a problem in the code and point that out to Microsoft or Apple of, hey, here's a problem I found and here's a solution. And with open source, anybody can come along and do that. for a lot of people, the quick reaction is going to be, well, if the code's exposed, then all these bad actors are going to be able to identify that and take advantage of it. And, that's not an incorrect statement. That is accurate. But my belief is that humans are at full nature or regular nature, just good people. And so the majority of people are going to point out, hey, there's an issue here, you should fix it. And if you flip that on its head and you say, hey, with Microsoft product, if there's a security exploit and somebody discovers that, there's no place really, it's not an easy way for them to disclose that to Microsoft. And so you have just as many bad actors taking advantage of things in that case as well. And I think the open nature to it, trying to get back on track here, the open nature to it tends itself towards people being able to help. And I think that's the exciting part about open source software is the community part. There's a whole group of people coming together to, there's a smaller group that actually works on the software usually. Sometimes it's just one person. But then you have a community of users around it, and they're giving feedback and they're testing and, all of this stuff that helps the developers continue to work on the project. So kind of, shortcutting a little bit here and talking about, when you're going to go and build a learning management program, why open source is a better way to go. There might be more cost on the front end, either in terms of time of setting it up, or you need to hire a developer to help set things up. With open source software, that is a reality, and it's good that we don't hide from that. But you fully own the solution. You have complete access to that code. So if you're a developer, you can get in there and mess with it. You can hire developers to do anything you want to it. And so you own the code, but you also own all the data. And, it's all about the data anymore, in terms of your customers' information, the actual course that you're building and sharing. And when you're using a closed solution, you don't have access to hardly any of that. There's a lot of times I've seen with these closed source solutions, you can't even really export the data out at all. So if you wanted to at least get something out of it and move somewhere else, you're going to have to build everything again from scratch. And so that little bit of savings you had up front for the convenience of just clicking a button and getting started, down the road, when you're 5-10 years down the road and you're making serious money because you've made a really great course, you're very successful. Now you're hitting the restrictions of whatever that software is that you were using, or worse yet, the business that was building that software was mismanaged, or they get sold to Adobe for, worst case scenario is that when Adobe buys your software, because it's probably going to go away and you have no control, you have no recourse over any of that. And with open source software, something like WordPress using LifterLMS, you have full control because it's your code. And, if you're not happy with the host that you're at, you can move on over to Kinsta and, have all those options to find better service. So, I can keep going for days about, the philosophy behind why open source software is better than closed source. But I think, really thinking in terms of ownership and total cost of ownership is a great place for people to start.
That's awesome. And one of the things that gets me excited is, and I don't know exactly where we're going with open source and artificial intelligence, but like you mentioned, because it's open, anybody could leverage AI tools and create all kinds of innovations, modify the code with AI, even if you're not a developer. Like, this is the world we're coming to. Webhost, as an example, could I like free open source as well. And we have free and premium add-ons, but if something's open source and it's free and it's just sitting up here on the entire internet for AI to take a look at and do whatever they want to do with it, it's a really powerful concept. Whereas like closed source software, people who work in that company are probably using AI tools to help write code and stuff, but it's not open to the world. Mm-hmm. And that's such a big idea. Any artificial intelligence thoughts in open source overlap for you?
Yeah, no, 100%. A big shout out to Victor Ramirez. He's a really awesome developer, does a lot of work with WordPress and stuff. And I saw him at WordCamp Phoenix 2024, and he had a really great talk about why WordPress is perfectly positioned for large language models and these AI tools. Because again, you have total ownership of the data. So if you want to give this data to a large language model, or you want to grab something like Llama, right, the open source LLM from Facebook, you can now create your own private LLM with your data in it, and you have full control over what it says and what it shares and what it doesn't share. Whereas, if you're going out to use OpenAI or some of these different closed source LLMs, you don't have as much say in terms of what data they're collecting. And as we evolve into using these tools more and more, and as companies realize the benefits of bringing these tools in, I think there's going to be a big wake up call where people realize if they don't own their data, they just don't have the control over what's being shared into these systems, how it's being used in these systems. And, with an open source tool like WordPress, you do have all of that control. And so I think I don't have a great exact answer for all this stuff yet. I would definitely follow Victor. He's putting out really great content. There's a lot of people talking about this stuff that are a lot smarter than me. But we're seeing it happen, and it's very exciting. Rich Tabor had a really great presentation at PressConf talking about how he's using AI and how he's using it in WordPress. And again, because you have the ability to go in and work with the code within WordPress and adapt it to what you want to use these tools for, you just have so much more freedom.
Yeah, exciting times. It'll be an interesting 5 or decade from here.
Yeah.
One of the things we talk about on this podcast a lot for course creators and education entrepreneurs is the power of building community. You're a community guy. In your job title at Kinsta is community manager.
Yeah.
What's some advice you have for people who are trying to get out from behind the computer in their niche and participate, but also maybe intentionally build community? Like, how do we do that?
It's a great question. I wish I had all of the answers for you. It's in my title, so obviously I must be an expert, is not accurate. I think having a beginner's mind and realizing community it can be challenging, but, take small bites. So for example, I think getting onto social media is a great first step for building community. There's already people out there talking about maybe not your exact course, but they're talking about something related to your course, and you can start interacting with them. I think, tools like Reddit are pretty amazing also because of how much they're getting pulled into Google search results and also these LLM tools. So you can kind of get some little double dipping there where you're getting community plus some SEO. If you're doing a B2B course, LinkedIn, there's all these different social media platforms out there you should be using, and you can get the two-way feedback going. And so I think that's really great. I think interviewing people that have something related to what you're trying to teach is a great way to get started with that, because now you're bouncing off of somebody else's ideas, you're gaining from their experience, and you're sharing that with your community. And I think there's a huge benefit to that. I get approached all the time on the interviews that I'm doing with people when I go to events, and people are like, "Hey, I've been watching your podcast. It's really great. And, thank you for, the great interviews." And so that, that always catches me off guard just a little bit, but it is really powerful and interesting. So then the second stage is talking about like going to actual in-person events and interacting with people. And I think starting small, again, is really important here. Don't think that you need to go and buy the biggest booth or even a booth at all. Like, just start going to the events that have some sort of relation to the course that you're doing. whether it's an industry event or just a general get together of people around that topic, and start interacting with people and connecting with them on social media, and taking those relationships and extending them beyond just meeting in person. But it's, getting that salesman, it's a sales mentality too, as well, right? Or even a marketing mentality, in that you really need to be putting yourself out there. You need to be not afraid to make a mistake and sound stupid. Because first of all, most people aren't paying attention that close. And like, people are focused on themselves. So don't get too hung up on making a mistake and sounding or looking stupid. It'll happen. I mean, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. We don't all know everything that we're talking about, especially when we're first starting. And also, that's going to be a great way for you to learn, is when somebody corrects you, and now you've learned something new, and maybe you won't do that mistake again. Just really enjoying it, and then learning really to enjoy talking to people and listening to people. So I think, the sales and marketing, we've talked about this in other conversations. I think sales and marketing is really integral, especially for a business. Obviously, you need to sell your product, but really, going beyond just I need to close this deal right now, and realizing you're building relationships. And not everybody's going to be a customer right now, but they might be in 6 months, they might be in a year. And just seeing every relationship as an opportunity to just connect with somebody, and maybe down the road something will come of it, but at least in the meantime, you've made a new connection with someone, learned their perspective on the world, and maybe you can take that into your business.
I love that. That was a masterclass. And I love what you said about just get out there, start with social media. We can all do that. We're probably already doing that, but do it with maybe a little more focus.
Mm-hmm.
Your net worth is your network kind of thing. Like, you can't always measure everything.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost a meme in our space, as with like WordPress companies, product companies, hosting companies. If you get asked the question, what's the ROI of sponsoring or attending a WordCamp or a conference? Like, I don't know, man, but I've met some great people, and things evolve, and we'll see.
A really great point, and it's something I need to get better at, is the whole measurement. I need to get better at making sure I'm putting my UTMs into my links, and I know I need to work on that. But my suggestion, in going with what you're kind of talking about here, is be careful with how much you're focused on ROI in relationships and with community, because it's much more organic. It's very transparent, right? Like, people know when you're trying to sell them. And so you need to take like a slower approach with that. But you can still use those sales tools in the back of your mind, like, try and leading conversations in different directions and whatnot. But, for the most part, you're really just trying to connect with people and, learn more about what their challenges are, and you might not be able to actually help them with that, but you might know somebody else who can. And so making sure that you're building referrals up and just showing people that you're there to actually try and help them and not just make a buck off of them, that goes a long way as well.
This episode of LMS Cast is brought to you by Popup Maker, the most powerful, trusted pop-up solution for WordPress. Whether you're selling online courses or memberships, Popup Maker helps you grow your email list, boost sales conversions, and engage your visitors with highly customizable pop-ups. Imagine creating custom opt-ins, announcements, and promotions that actually convert. I personally use Popup Maker on my LifterLMS websites for lead magnet opt-ins, cart abandonment, upsells, downsells, and guiding users to helpful content. Popup Maker is an essential tool for growing my email list and making more money online through my website. Ready to take your website to the next level? head on over to wppopupmaker.com/LMScast and save 15% on your order. Discount automatically applies when you visit through that link. Popup Maker also has an awesome free version, so you can just use that as well. Go to wppopupmaker.com/LMScast and save 15% off your order, or get started with the free version now. Get more leads and sales on your website with Popup Maker today. Now back to the episode. Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned getting on social media, and you're active on LinkedIn and other places. I feel like many of us, sometimes we have our primary, like I'm primarily a Twitter person, and my company's more primarily YouTube when it comes to, which is kind of like social media with the comments. But and we have like a big Facebook group or whatever. But the funny thing about social media is people often say, oh, like Facebook's dead, or LinkedIn, there's too much DM spam, or whatever, like Twitter's dead, but they're not. You just got to learn how to drive it. So take us to school on LinkedIn, how you use it, what you like about it, and advice for people looking to grow influence and just participate in a social network like LinkedIn.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've been on social media off and on for
Yeah.
a long time. I think I signed up for my Twitter account in like 2007 or something silly. And I used to really be big on Twitter, and then I got burned out of that. I was big on Facebook, and I got burned out of that. And I think one of the big reasons that I like LinkedIn is it's about business. And so, like, there's a lot of times on like Twitter and Facebook, these other social media networks, where you'll start wanting to do a business type of thing and people will get really upset. And you're like, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Whereas on LinkedIn, it's like everybody is there for the purpose of doing business. And so, like, it's just expected that you're going to be talking about your product, and you're going to be talking about, maybe a business idea or a methodology or sales technique and things like that. And so I really like that, because I'm at the point now in my life where I don't really need social media to like fulfill personal things. I've got my wife, I've got, friends and family and all of that type of stuff. And I really try and disconnect as much as I can. But when I'm working, LinkedIn is where I'm at, because I can connect with all the people that I'm doing business with, or I'm partnered with, or I'm in a community with. And so I think it helps from that standpoint. If you're looking to do B2B stuff, especially, LinkedIn's huge. As far as actually using LinkedIn, there's a few different things that I would highly recommend. So the first one is understanding the power of comments. On LinkedIn, comments are possibly more powerful than actually posting.
It's funny as you say that. I'm looking at one of your LinkedIn posts that has 27 comments, which is a lot. And and you were doing a community thing. I think it was around something you did with Nat Midalick. And like, for example, if I do a LinkedIn post, I don't often get as many comments, but I'm also not participating that much in comments everywhere. So tell us more about why the comment could be superior to the post.
Yeah. So, it's on any social media, when you get a comment, right? Like, you get really excited. You get this feel good. Oh, somebody left a comment. I remember on Twitter back in the day, it was all about the star. If somebody starred your tweet, like you're, oh, this is amazing. So on LinkedIn, you get that same feeling, right? Every time somebody leaves a comment on a post for me, I'm like over the moon, so excited. But one thing to keep in mind is when you leave a comment on somebody's post, LinkedIn now shows that post in your followers' feed, highlighting your comment, but it also highlights the post. And so every time you're commenting, you're creating more network effect inside of LinkedIn. So you're helping to spread other people's posts. So there's the first reason. The second reason, and this is from a sales perspective, right? If I've got somebody who I'm trying to sell to, right? I want to talk to them. There's a lot of ways to do that, right? You can cold call, you can email, you can send them flowers or whatever. If they're active on LinkedIn, you can comment on their posts. And I can tell you that when somebody leaves a comment on my post, and I don't normally get 27 is a lot of comments. So it's not normally that much, but every time somebody leaves a comment on my post, I see who they are, and I'm immediately like, okay, this person, especially if they leave a good comment and it's like, they've obviously read the post and they're trying to build a conversation with it. I'll remember who you are. And so then if that person sends me a DM, it's not a cold DM anymore, right? Or if they cold call me or they email me, I know who that is already a little bit. And there's also this verification, because on LinkedIn, you can verify your company email and show, hey, I actually do work at Kinsta, right? I'm not just, some random scammer who's reaching out to you. And so you get this social verification. Also, if I'm connected to people in their network, LinkedIn immediately shows that. And so there's all of this social contract stuff that, immediately is coming through your mind, but all you did was leave a comment on somebody's post. And so commenting is really big, and it's also a great way for people to start looking at you and your profile and what you're posting and getting more interested in that. So start with commenting. And then after that, after you're doing that and you're starting to get a feel for, who's on LinkedIn that you're interested in following, not just because it's fun, like they post like, oh, these cool cat memes, or they post a big takedown on AI. No, they're actually talking about your industry. They're talking about a topic that you're interested in, either because it's directly tied to your business, or maybe that's a course you want to work on. And so you start building out this network. Then you start looking at posting. And so posting, there's a lot of strategies to take with this. I personally like posting videos. LinkedIn has been making a big push to get more video onto their platform. And so just by posting videos on there, you're immediately going to be shown in their algorithm, more often than not, especially more often than just a text post. But also adding images can help. Carousels is another thing that they were trying to push. I don't keep up with these things as well. Here's what I know though, Chris. Video is what it's all about. You know this. I mean, here we are right now, right? We're on video talking. TikTok is the biggest social media platform in the world right now. Facebook has changed everything over to Reels. YouTube has Shorts. And so LinkedIn has their videos, and they're pushing that really hard. And so at first I was doing videos where it was just a selfie type of thing. Hey, look at me. I'm talking. I'm, doing something. And I quickly realized, or my boss actually quickly realized that, I'm pretty okay at talking to people. And so she was like, you should start interviewing people and putting that onto LinkedIn. And so that's where I got started. And that's something that, I think Matt Medeiros calls me the king of vertical video or something like that. It's not my intent, right? It's just when I post stuff onto LinkedIn wants to show those video posts. And then I've done a good job, I think, of having great guests on. Like, it's always good to have somebody who's very interesting on and people want to hear from and things like that. And then also just like posting pretty regularly, a couple of times a week is a pretty good cadence. And then finally, I can talk about LinkedIn a lot, but there is a tool that I do recommend people, if they're really serious about LinkedIn. It's called Aware. The domain is useaware.co. And this is a really great tool for working on LinkedIn. It's kind of like a Hootsuite, but it's only for LinkedIn. And I think the reason that it's really important to have this tool as opposed to like a Hootsuite is that with Hootsuite, you're scheduling posts, right? Like that's the primary purpose of that. And you have that in Aware. Like, it has the ability to send a post in there. It creates a nice little preview so you see like where the see more button's going to be and you know how it's going to show up. But that's like 10% of what Aware does for you. The bigger part of it is the commenting. And so it helps you find your replies. It organizes those into a reply. It has a community tab, so people who are in your network, as they're posting, it makes it really easy to find their posts and leave comments or reshare. And then it also creates, you can create custom lists. So if you've got like 30 or 100 people that you're trying to prospect, you can throw them into Aware, and then now you'll see all of their posts and you can leave comments there. So it's a really neat tool. If you're at all serious about using LinkedIn for business, especially for social selling, Aware is an indispensable tool to have.
Wow, that was a masterclass on LinkedIn. That's awesome. I'm checking out useaware.co right now. It's really cool. We're coming up on the hour, Roger. Tell us about the podcast. Is it Kinsta Talks? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, no, great question here, as always. So Kinsta Talks is the name of the show. It's not actually a podcast at this point. I need to take that extra step and start posting. I need to get a podcast set up and send it there.
So LinkedIn is where people should check it out, the Kinsta Talks?
So even that's evolving. So YouTube is really the main place. So on the Kinsta YouTube channel, there's a playlist called Kinsta Talks. And I've been posting there. It's like, okay, the full length episodes go onto YouTube because that's where people want to watch anything that's more than 5 minutes long. And then usually I'll put like a 30 second to 3 minute clip on LinkedIn. And so like a teaser a little bit, and then people can click and go on over to YouTube. So quick caveat with LinkedIn, they do not like external links in the posts. You will not show up as well in the feed. So what you want to do is put the links into the comments. So, it's a little bit of a hack around there, but yeah, be careful with the external links on LinkedIn. But yeah, so the show's on YouTube, and then hopefully I'll get my act together and actually have a podcast so people can just get it in their feed and have coffee and listen to me talk.
That's awesome. Roger, I appreciate the conversation. Keep up the amazing work at Kinsta. Go check out kinsta.com. Go find Roger on LinkedIn. It's Roger Williams. I feel like you look, your profile and you always like look the same. So like I find you easy to find on social media or even at a conference. I'm like, there's Roger. He's you're consistent, man. And you got the orange Kinsta shirt on. It's awesome.
ABB, always be branding.
There you go. Any other final words for the people or any other place you'd like people to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to clarify, on LinkedIn, the URL slug is Roger Williams Media. There's a lot of Roger Williamses out there. One guy even decided to found a state. Crazy. But I've got a personal blog, rogerwilliamsmedia.com. I've just kind of kicked that off again. So come and check it out. I have different musings. I talk about some of my interviews. Have a look. Give me some feedback. Let me know what I'm doing well, what I'm not doing so well. And yeah, please connect with me. If you see me in an event, come and say hi. I love talking to everybody.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, Roger. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Chris. Thank you.
And that's a wrap for this episode of LMS Cast. Did you enjoy that episode? Tell your friends and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And I've got a gift for you over at LifterLMS.com/gift. Go to LifterLMS.com/gift. Keep learning, keep taking action, and I'll see you in the next episode.